Our planet is home to about 1.8 million identified species. Of these species, about 46,000 of them are currently threatened with extinction. This number only comes from the 28% of species that have been assessed by the IUCN. Species become endangered as their population numbers decrease and can approach extinction naturally towards the end of their lifespan. This can be caused by environmental factors such as habitat fragmentation, natural disaster, or global change, as well as by genetic factors like inbreeding, poor reproduction, or just a general decline in population numbers. Naturally, the background extinction rate is approximately 1 out of 1 million species every year. However, since the exponential increase in human population, the current extinction rate is estimated to be 1,000 to 10,000 times higher. This means that more than 99% of at-risk species are threatened as a direct result of human involvement. And while some of these species are well known to most, many of our planet's threatened inhabitants tend to go almost completely unnoticed by the general public. This brings our attention to the Rio Ameca, near Jalisco, Mexico, the original home of Ameca splendens, more commonly known as the butterfly splitfin. Ameca splendens is a live-bearing Goodeiid fish that was first collected from the Rio Ameca around 1948 and was first published as a new species in 1971 in the science journal Ichthyology and Herpetology, which back then was known as Copaea. Following a noticeable decline in their population numbers, Ameca splendens was declared extinct in the wild in 1996. However, they were rediscovered the following year in 1997, and their conservation status was changed to critically endangered since then. Conservation efforts have been taken up by aquarists and hobbyists and students who aim to raise awareness while preserving their populations. At Miami-Dade College, we conducted a study to assess which conditions would yield more offspring for Ameca splendens: controlled indoor conditions or outdoor conditions. Information about Ameca splendens is limited to the fact that they're just hardy fish. They inhabit freshwater habitats such as streams, lakes, and rivers with temperatures that range from 26 to 32 degrees Celsius. They thrive in hard, mineral-rich water with high oxygenation and moderate to swift current with a pH of around 6 to 8. Butterfly splitfins are mainly herbivorous with a diet that consists of diatoms and filamentous algae, but they've been known to consume some sparse animal material such as mosquito larvae and copepods. For the project, 2 30-gallon tanks were established indoors with 2 females and 1 male each, while 4 40-gallon tubs were established outdoors with a total of 18 fish. Sponge filters were installed in each of the tanks to encourage the growth of beneficial nitrifying bacteria, and Najas grass was planted in each of the tanks as well to help cycle their nitrate byproducts. Tests were periodically done on the water to ensure that adequate conditions were maintained throughout the project. While I monitored the breeding in the outdoor tanks, my peers monitored the indoor portion of the project.
Hello, my name is Xavier Quincoses. I'm majoring in biology. I'm from Miami-Dade Honors College, and I was part of the project with Victor Portillo and Dr. Claiborne in breeding indoor Ameca splendens.
So did you face any challenges with the indoor breeding at all?
Yes, I did, mostly at the beginning of the project because this species is vulnerable. So I had to make sure that I check them every week, just to see if they were doing good and swimming.
And how did you monitor their health?
So I monitor weekly. I set up on Mondays. I'll go to school and bring from school a water test kit. So I had to test different levels like ammonia, nitrate, pH, just to see if the water was good for them.
Did this project influence your interest in environmental science or conservation biology in any way?
Yes, it really did, because I'm a major in biology. Though I'm going to pursue a career in medicine, I really like biology as a whole. So I believe that, humans, we tend to harm and also do good. And to the environment, we have to think about these species that are being threatened by us, but also how small, contributions we can make for them to have another chance, another opportunity.
While the maintenance of the outdoor tanks were kept to a minimum, their exposure to the elements brought on some unique challenges for the project. Sometime in mid-early January, South Florida saw the temperatures drop as low as 50 degrees, and the movement of the fish became visibly minimal and slowed. This required us to employ heaters in each of the tanks just to maintain a temperature that was adequate for their survival. Once the temperature in the tanks became stabilized, the fish were visibly happier and were even seen engaging in play. After a few weeks, the Najas grass began to propagate very rapidly, and the tanks saw the arrival of a new tenant, ram's horn snails. The tanks were showing indicators of a healthy ecosystem and truly coming to life. And as they say, life begets life. About a month and a half into the project, one of the females in Tank 1 was seen visibly pregnant. Even with the unpredictable shifts in weather, Amica splendens was proving their ability to persist through various conditions. One of the factors that we didn't consider with the outdoor tanks was how much sunlight they would end up receiving. One day, while doing a partial water change, the substrate was kicked up and presumably released some trapped phosphates because an algal bloom was seen almost immediately, accompanied by a rise in pH. This completely diminished the visibility in the tanks, making it very difficult to monitor the fish. So we added some duckweed to float at the surface of the tanks, hoping that it will partially block the sun, as well as some almond leaves to help regulate the pH. We also shifted to the use of distilled water for our water changes and employed the use of an action camera to help monitor the fish. Another factor that affected the outdoor tanks was the access that other organisms would possibly have to them. It was initially planned that the fact that the Najas grass would float towards the top and the fish would prefer to stay towards the bottom of the tank, that would mitigate any possibility of predation. Now, on one particularly hot day, a couple of northern curly-tailed lizards managed to make their way into the tanks, and this immediately brought about the concern that the fish would become subject to predation. So the lizards were removed and the action camera was employed to confirm the presence of the fish. Luckily, the fish were still there, and it seems that the lizards were just seeking out the water to help regulate their body temperature. When the time came to count the fish, the water was drained down to the level of the substrate, and the fish were removed one by one to ensure an accurate count. Finally seeing the floor of the tanks, one could truly see how much life had bloomed in them throughout the duration of the project. With the counts being complete, the pregnant female from Tank 1 was able to yield 7 offspring, with the other 3 tanks yielding none. The indoor breeding also yielded 7 offspring. After the data analysis, the outdoor systems saw a population increase of 39%, while the indoor systems saw an increase of 117%. From this, we can conclude that Amica splendens can produce healthy offspring under both conditions, but a controlled and consistent environment is more productive. If we were to do the project again with the knowledge we have now, one thing that I would do differently is I would monitor the pH more closely and try to maintain it within a more narrow range so that the fish don't have to expend any energy adapting to pH changes. Now I guess the final question would be, if Amica splendens has proven itself to be so hardy, what has happened that makes it critically endangered? Regardless of how adaptable an organism can be, I think every living thing has its limits. And I think that the butterfly splitfin began to meet its limits with the construction of the La Vega reservoir. When the reservoir was created, it dramatically reduced the water flow, which in turn dramatically reduced the oxygen levels of the water. Now for a fish like Amica splendens that prefers fast-flowing waters, that's going to be a big issue. Another big issue, of course, is going to be water pollution. Near the river, there's a sugar mill factory, as well as some farms, some agave farms. Now the factory began to dump its sewage, its waste into the river, while the farms, they're farms, so what are they doing? They're spraying their crops with pesticides. That runoff made its way directly into the Rio Amica. So you have this fish that has to deal with not only reduced water flow and oxygen, but now is coming into direct contact with, poisons and toxins. And as if that weren't enough to deal with, butterfly splitfins had to begin to share their habitat with the spot-tailed killifish. Spot-tailed killifish is another live bearer, but it's not endemic to the Rio Amica. It was an invasive species. So now the next question is, well, how did the spot-tailed killifish get there? As temperatures rise and the water's warm, now the spot-tail can gain access to habitats that it previously couldn't because they were just colder before. Research on the spot-tailed killifish has shown that when it gains access to waters that it previously was unable to, it causes competition for those endemic species. And those endemic species, in order to avoid
any type of negative interaction with the invasive one, will try to adapt to cooler waters to try to stay away. So now you have this issue where they're kind of running away and they're running towards colder waters. But if the waters are warming, those cold waters become less and less available. So with all these pressures, it really comes as no surprise that while Amecus splendens is not entirely extinct in the wild, there's only one wild population left, and they're found near Teochitlan, Mexico, in this water park called El Rincon. And the water park does put forth effort into preserving that population, but really the survival of the species is hinging on fish enthusiasts and hobbyists and other like-minded individuals who have said, hey, we don't want to lose this species. They're pretty easy to take care of. Why don't we just take care of them on our own? And I think that's a really powerful sentiment. It's meaningful. I think it shows that while humans have this tendency to disrupt the balance of life and nature, that should not stop us from putting forth energy into preserving nature and undoing the damage and trying to save these species for future generations, not just human generations, just future generations of life itself.